This one's looking good. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Brian Terrian from the Disability Digest. My apologies for the 2-minute delay today, but we are here for our YouTube live event. Welcome. Today we have a special event. We have an hour with the expert. Attorney James Mitchell Brown is here with us. You see his chair is empty, but he will be there sitting in it momentarily. Philip and Nadine, wonderful to have you with us today.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
So we had a few different concepts for the event today, and it got whittled down to basically an update on what is going on with all of the new administration related items for your Social Security disability benefits. So if you are an applicant or a recipient for disability benefits, you're going to get like the inside scoop, the update on what the new administration is doing and what their potential is. And just on cue, Jim came and sat in his seat. Thank you for joining us.
Looked like you were shaking hands with me, Brian.
Well, there is my virtual handshake. Yeah. No, I was just introducing you. And for those of you that have not been here, Jim's been here a few times, like pretty much quarterly. But it's a pleasure to have you here. I refer to you as the expert. Actually, it's an earned title. You have been working and representing disability claimants in different facets of helping them get approved, overpayments, CDRs since 1973. Amazing.
Wow.
It's pretty much been your life's work. So, in addition to that, you have connections with Congress, with different organizations within the industry. You were the first Lifetime Achievement Award winner for an Oscar. So you just have an incredible amount of wealth and knowledge. So it's awesome for you to come share your insights with members. Thank you.
And for today to talk about Doge, I've called on a lot of sources, but there's a lot of people who don't know what they're talking about. So I'm just sorting out the best information I can to give these answers today.
Right. And I know your fan club is watching out there, so I think we should give a shout out to Debbie. Yes. Good. Okay, so for today's format, we're going to go through some of the commonly asked questions about Doge, Social Security. There's 18 different areas we're going to touch on, like is it going to be harder to get benefits? What's the impact going to be on your CDRs? The last topic that we'll cover in this section will be like, what's the future look like for Social Security, for Social Security disability benefits? Then we're going to take some questions. Philip Price is here from the largest, fastest growing Facebook group on the planet Earth. And he has 5 questions, I believe, from your group today.
Yes.
And then Nadine will manage questions. You'll have the opportunity today, folks, to actually join the Zoom room, meeting room here and ask a question to Jim or to the group of us here, and that could be, CDR, overpayment, qualification question, hopefully anything in the area of Social Security disability that we can add value to. Right? Okay. All right, let's get into it. Jim, are you ready?
I'm ready.
So from the outside looking in, the area that has looks like it's taking the biggest hit so far with the new administration is Medicaid and Medicaid cuts. What do these mean, and how may that impact some of those that are in our audience out there? We have a lot of dual eligible folks.
Right. Well, the House passed a budget bill yesterday. And although it didn't say it, it means it's going to be about a $750 million a year cut to Medicaid. That's going to affect a lot of people trying to get disability. And if they can't get medical care, they're not going to be able to prove they're disabled.
Yeah.
So it's going to have a big hit in several ways. Now, it's known that there's a lot of fraud in Medicaid, but not by the individuals receiving it. The fraud in Medicaid is by some of the mega providers, and most of them are legitimate. So I'm not painting a big brush, but when they actually investigate Medicaid, they find that there are some providers who are doing a lot of things that aren't legal. They're billing for tests they don't give. They're billing for patients who miss appointments, which is illegal. If you come in with a sore wrist, they're saying you have carpal tunnel so that they can charge more for the diagnoses. And there are a lot of things that are going on. They're charging for an injection that they're giving you a generic, but charging for the name brand. So they charge more, and they get the cost of the medicine plus a percentage above it. So there are fraudulent things going on in Medicaid that should be shut down. But just a sweeping taking $750 million out of it is going to affect the people who need the health care. It's not going after the fraudulent providers.
Yeah, and this is a done deal because it passed, right?
No, it's a done deal, but they haven't decided how they're going to do it yet.
Okay.
In some states, they're saying you have to work to get Medicaid. In other states, they're restricting it only to people over age 55. So they're going to let the states set some of the standards. They haven't said they're doing it to Medicaid yet. But if you read between the lines of this budget bill, Medicaid's taking the biggest hit.
So let me see if I can break this down to like the ground level for like a disability applicant. Somebody is out there and is not able to work. They likely don't have short-term, long-term disability benefit insurance, so they don't have any resources, and very limited, if any, other financial resources. So then to prove that they qualify for their, let's say, $1,500 disability check, Social Security disability check, they need to prove that they're going to the doctor, conditions are diagnosed and being treated. It's that piece right there because they can't afford to go, the co-pays, the specialists, the pain management, right? That's where the problem lies.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So the workaround out there is get short-term, long-term disability if you're still working. That's the best thing I can think of. Get approved before all this goes in. That's the second best thing, right?
But a lot of people are in jobs where they can't afford to take part of their income and spend it on longer short-term disability because they don't think they'll ever need it. And then when you do need it, it's too late.
Yeah, that's a whole different thing to tackle. So we talked about the cuts, the fraud, like, okay, so this 750 million, like these administrative costs, like Is that what we're referring to? Where do they come from? Like when you say you're going to cut 750, where does that come out of a state budget or?
It comes out of federal grants to the state. It's going to turn out to be more because in addition to that, the Affordable Care Act provides subsidies to people getting private health insurance, and they're going to cut that off too.
Okay. All right.
So it's going to get people every which way.
Yeah. So if I'm a media consumer of one of those, brand name channels that starts with an F and ends with an X, then I would be likely to believe that we're getting all of this money back because there's however many million people over 100 years old that are getting benefits that we could just turn those off and redirect the money. So what's the real deal with that? The centurions still getting Social Security.
The real deal is they're taking advantage of the least fortunate and the people who need the coverage the best. Even if you get Social Security disability, you don't get Medicare till you're on disability 29 months. So for those 29 months, you're going to need Medicaid.
Okay, but
and you won't be able to get it.
Okay, let me refocus my question here. My point is that I believe a consumer is being led to believe that we're recovering all of this money because we're paying Social Security benefits to people that are over 100, which most of them are deceased, right?
Okay. Social Security is using a computer program that was created in the 60s, 1960s. So when they hire new IT people, they don't know how to use that program. They have to send them for training to learn how to use that program. The Doge people don't know how to use that program. And what they don't realize is there were people who signed up for retirement benefits 40 years ago, something like that. And it automatically clicked in a date that would make them over 100 years old now. That's not their age. But that's what there's about 13,000 people over 100 years old getting retirement benefits now. But it looks like there's more than that. Of the 1.5 million people they have over 150 years old in the Social Security system, they aren't getting benefits.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where the president said earlier today that there's people 200 years old getting Social Security. They're not. They're not doing that. One of the problems is, well, what happens when somebody dies, funeral directors send a form to Social Security. It's part of arranging your funeral to stop your checks. And it's better than 99% accurate. If you don't go to a funeral director, that form doesn't get sent in unless somebody does it. But almost everybody goes to a funeral director. Even if you die and you're a pauper and the government takes care of burying you, a funeral director is involved and sends the form to Social Security. There's no national death registry. Social Security has tried to get one, but those who favor states' rights don't want the federal government having a registry of everyone who died. Why they feel that way is beyond me. But Social Security is incredibly accurate about stopping benefits for people who died, usually within 2 weeks of the date of death.
Wow.
So their accuracy is incredible on that. So this blustering that there's people over 150 years old getting Social Security retirement benefits is crazy. It's not happening.
Makes for good news. Or maybe for some.
It's a bad computer system. Back in the 90s, it would have cost $400 million to upgrade the computer system. And Social Security has been trying to get a new computer system. It would now cost over $1 billion for a new computer system. And at some point, they're going to have to get a new system.
Yeah, sounds it. 1960, they've gotten their money's worth out of that one. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, is there any areas that are really legit, like, you know, let me phrase it this way. In most particular, in the area that we're working in, are there areas where there are efficiencies that Social Security could gain? Like, um, you know, if they went looking and auditing people, I mean, that's kind of getting into the CDR thing I want to cover with you in a minute, but am I making sense?
The
Question?
Yeah, the Inspector General of Social Security did a very good audit on an ongoing basis, and they were constantly finding things that would improve the system. Frankly, if they would sit down with a dozen representatives, a dozen people from field offices, a dozen people from DDS, and a dozen ALJs,
Yeah.
and start by saying, everybody give us the 10 things you think should be done that would improve the system, at least 5 things would be on everybody's list.
Yeah.
So implement those 5 things immediately.
Mhm.
My way of thinking, and back when I was going to Congress regularly, was they should improve the front end of the system, get the people who deserve their benefits faster without having to file an appeal. The
Yes.
most expensive part of the system is the back end, when they get into the hearings, to more exams. If they would teach the people at DDS how to do their job better, they don't get training into the medical issues of Social Security, into the vocational issues, get better doctors to do the independent exams and the medical reviews, and spend the money at that top, at the beginning steps, pay the people who deserve it faster, and you'd cut the administrative costs. Now, having said that, the administrative cost of the Social Security system is 0.84%. Less than 1% is administration. And the administrative costs come out of the Social Security income. It doesn't come out of the federal budget.
Okay.
So the administrative costs of Tesla are 14%. So you can't tell me that Elon Musk knows how to cut the administrative costs of Social Security. What he
Ooh.
wants to do is cut the benefits people are getting.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, the concept that you just shared with us about training the Social Security Administration staff to do a better job on the front end and get the cases approved faster. I mean, I don't know, what's I think 250 on YouTube out there would give you a big amen on a Wednesday on that one. I mean, that just sounds
Right.
so simple.
Now, I will tell you, the people at DDS are trying to do a good job. For the most part, they're conscientious workers. They're trying to do their best. And every one of them would say, send us for some training. Give us a week off to get training into the medical issues, the vocational issues, so we
Yeah.
could understand this better.
Yeah.
Because it's all on the job training.
Yeah. Yeah. So the whole $100 million in fraud thus far, we're not, I mean, I'm not seeing it. Am I missing
But
something?
one of the things they're starting to say is that every Social Security overpayment is fraudulent.
Okay.
So if you were overpaid because somebody at Social Security hit the wrong key when they paid your past due benefit, it's not your fault. You didn't know you were overpaid, but they're going to say it's fraud because you should have known it. And instead of processing it as an overpayment, they're going to send it to the Inspector General to process it as fraud. And I've had a few clients who have actually been indicted for fraud. And every time they've had to hire a lawyer who specializes in criminal defense, but they've won the cases.
Hmm.
But what you go through to have that happen and to be charged with a crime when you're on disability and you didn't know that something was done that shouldn't have been done, it's not fraudulent.
Yeah, I'll
But
share this quick
they're
one with
doing
you.
it.
This happened just last week. I'll call the member Mark. Contacts us and says, I was approved for disability 6 years ago. And I just received a deposit in my account. It was like $36,000 from Social Security. And I'm not sure what to do. And I haven't had this happen before. I don't know if you ever heard of this happen. So I said, first of all, don't spend the money because there was no paperwork. Yeah. There was no paperwork that lined up with it. But what happened was, after an extensive amount of like time on the phone and call attempts and all that, he finally got supporting documentation that they had not paid him his back benefits all of this time, right? And he just received it. So somebody like that, I mean, without having that confirmation of a document, I would be concerned about like an overpayment situation. But I thought that was partly applicable, but a really cool success story for this guy.
One of the numbers thrown out recently was there's $500 billion in Social Security fraud each year. Social Security pays out a little over $1 trillion a year. So to say half of the money Social Security pays out is fraudulent is absurd.
Yeah.
It's just not happening. The Inspector General investigates Social Security enough to know there's very little fraud going on.
Yeah.
And one other thing to remind people, it's not fraudulent to apply for Social Security. If you break the little finger on your non-dominant hand and apply for disability and say, I can't do my job because of it, it's not fraudulent. You're going to get turned down. But applying for disability isn't fraudulent. If everything you do in that application is honest, you're not committing fraud. You're entitled to apply and see if you're eligible.
Good. We're about halfway through some of the key questions. We're going to get into some of the impacts on approvals, CDRs, and that in a minute, but I just want to give a shout out to the audience. We have industry expert James Mitchell Brown here going through like some of the commonly asked questions about the new administration and benefits. We are going to have a Q&A as we finish this session, where you can enter your question in chat on YouTube or in Facebook group, Philip's Facebook group, or you can join the conversation. We'll bring a few of you in for to have like an actual conversation Q&A. So hang tight. We're going to finish up this part of the program and then we'll be back with you. So is there anything as in the fraud part, Jim, that we have not addressed that may be of concern to disability applicants, disability recipients, like anything at all, like, you know, you're applying for disability saying you've got degenerative disc disease and you can't sit and stand for 15 minutes, but your social media shows you riding a horse. I mean, is there anything out there that we should touch on before we move to the next topics?
Well, somebody called me yesterday who needed to file for a hearing. And in talking to him, he told me, well, he's working under the table and making about $2,000 a month. That would have been fraud.
Yeah.
I told them, what are you going to do when the judge says, how are you paying your bills? Either you tell them the truth and you get denied, and maybe you get turned over to IRS for not paying taxes on your income, or you lie about it, and then you're lying, you're perjuring yourself.
Yeah.
So if you're working under the table and making $500 a month, you're not working at substantial gainful activity level, and it's okay. But if you're making $2,000 a month, you're not eligible for Social Security. And if you lie about it, you're committing fraud and you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
But as far as what to look out for, they're going to be cranking up the continuing disability reviews. They're going to be going after those even more. because Elon Musk doesn't think people are disabled.
Yeah.
And he's calling the shots right now. And if he can cut people off of disability, he really doesn't care if they commit suicide like they did a lot in the 80s when Ronald Reagan tried to cut off 500,000 people a year.
Mm-hmm.
To terminate your benefits, they have to prove that you've gotten well enough to return to work.
Yeah.
Not just that you've improved, but that you've improved enough to return to work. And that the burden is on Social Security. But the people who do the continuing disability review hearings are under a lot of pressure because they don't want to get fired. So I've seen some of them just say there's enough improvement to return to substantial gainful activity because there's pressure on them.
Yeah.
And it's getting tougher and tougher since the election. So
let's stay on this
make
for
sure
a
you
minute.
keep.
Pardon me.
Okay.
When you on the CDRs, I understand Elon's position that you're communicating, but it was also my understanding from this might have been the last Biden budget, is that for every dollar spent invested in doing CDRs, they're getting like an $11-ish return. Have you heard any numbers like that?
I haven't heard any numbers like that. The last numbers I heard was that they weren't even getting a dollar for dollar back.
Okay.
When they counted all the dollars, when they count the letters they send out, the letters that came back, the reviewing them, the amount of people doing it,
Yeah.
if they just looked at dollars, we investigated this many people and got this much money back, they can inflate the numbers. If they look at the actual hours of labor to cut people off, it's not 11 to 1. It's not even 1 to 1.
Okay. Interesting. So when you say the
important thing for people to remember is keep going to the doctors.
Yeah. Yes.
Make sure you're.
Yes.
And when you go to the doctor and the first thing they say is, "How are you?" Don't say, "I'm fine."
Right.
Don't say, "Good." Start off by telling all your problems.
Yeah. So two things on my mind here. When you say the burden of proof, I understand the burden of proof is on Social Security, but the challenge, in my opinion, for a disability recipient is being able to effectively defend themselves for a CDR, because it's different than going through the approval process with back benefits, and not many people do CDR work. So that's where getting representation, if you were to need it, is challenging. One thing I do want to give a shout out to everybody is here at the Disability Digest, you can access our membership for no charge. If you're approved for disability, you are enrolled into our How to Survive Your CDR course that was put together with none other than attorney James Mitchell Brown. It has 10 segments, teaches you how to prepare, like you just mentioned, like what to say when you go to the doctors, you're doctoring, what to do when you get the forms, what happens if it doesn't go well after you submit your forms. It's all there. So that's one way in which we can help you out. There's no cost for your membership. Of course, there's no cost for that either. So keep your benefits. Okay, on CDRs, we expect the volume to increase. That's what I'm hearing, right?
We expect the volume to increase and the burden to be tougher to keep your benefits.
Okay.
I don't expect them to follow the law, and I expect a lot of cases to go to federal court to prove that they're doing it illegally.
Okay. So we've talked about the approval piece. How do you feel that the approval process is going to be impacted? Like such things as if there's less staff, then the service will be hit. But what ways do you see that people can expect potential challenges, I'll say, because it's not a done deal yet?
Well, part of it is a done deal. Last week, I had a client who had an appointment scheduled with Social Security, and she got a call saying the person who her appointment was with had only worked for Social Security 11 months, was a probationary employee, and got laid off.
Okay.
So her appointment for last week was rescheduled for early April. And there's going to be a lot less employees, which means everything's going to take longer.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're going to have quotas set that you have to handle a certain amount of cases a week. So they're going to be making the decisions without looking at the cases as carefully as they should.
Mm-hmm.
If your medical records are 2,000 pages, they'd get fired if they read them. Because it might take a whole day to read 2,000 pages of medical records, and they're not allowed to read that much because then they wouldn't meet their quota.
Right. Right.
So you have to hope that in the first page or two, there's some significant findings that would make them look for something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I see things taking longer and more denials at the first two steps. The other thing to worry about is Trump fired 20 immigration judges. These are all people with civil service protection. He said he can fire any administrative law judges he wants. And he's looking at the Social Security judges. Musk has told him any judges paying more than 40% of the claim should be fired.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That would put a huge burden. I mean, you figure conservatively, the judges ought to be approving half the claims. They're not reviewing the judge who paid 6% of her claims last year. And when she paid 6% of the claims, only 2 of those were fully favorable. And the other 7 she paid, she only gave partially favorable decisions. Another judge paid 9% of the claims. They're not reviewing those. They're rewarding judges like that.
Yeah.
And penalizing the judges who are actually looking at things fairly and compassionately. So if they start firing judges, we're going to see bigger delays again. And what could happen is hearings that are scheduled won't be held because there won't be a judge to hear them.
Yeah. Wow. Just a shout out for everybody out there. If you're paying attention to this, hopefully you are, if you're going through the approval process, I encourage you to double down and do whatever you can to ideally follow our process here, so that you can get your benefits approved without getting into a 6 or a 9% approval rating judge. You can have a great case, but odds are not in your favor. Okay. And let's back on fraud for a minute. What about, like, if people are accused of fraud? Is that a big enough issue to discuss at this point in time? If they get a call or they get, contacted?
Well, first of all, if somebody calls you or comes to your door, don't talk to them. If Social Security has any fraud charges against you, they will send you a letter. There are some scammers who are calling and saying, this is Social Security and you're guilty of fraud and we need your bank account information, or you have to pay us something with Bitcoin, or these gift certificates you buy at the grocery store, the drugstore. Don't do it.
Yeah.
These scammers are making hundreds of millions of dollars a year taking advantage of people. So avoid them. There are some fraud investigators, and this happened more during the George W. Bush era. And they would follow somebody into a grocery store, say, where's the milk? And the person would point to where the milk was. And then they'd show up at their house. They'd show them valid credentials and say, you said on your application you don't speak English, and we asked you a question in English and you answered, so you're guilty of fraud and we could put you in jail, but if you agree to give up your Social Security, we'll drop any fraud charges. And they really cheated people out of their disability benefits that way.
Mm-hmm.
I represented several people that I got on back on disability. The judges were livid that these so-called fraud investigators were taking advantage of people like that. I had somebody where he owned a restaurant, but he was too disabled to work at it. But they followed him into the restaurant. They videoed him going in. They videoed him coming out 6 hours later. They had no videos of him working at the cash register, taking an order. What he did is he went in, he sat at a booth, he schmoozed with people all day, and then went home. He didn't do an iota of work. And when we had the hearing, I asked the investigator how many hours of video they had, and he was refusing to answer. And the judge finally got it out of him that they had over 100 hours of video and not 1 minute of him working. All they were basing it on was when he got into the diner and when he left.
Mm-hmm.
And there was absolutely no fraud, but they made this man suffer terribly by bringing these fraud charges against him.
Oh, yeah. I
So
mean, going through something like that has got to be just taxing. Yeah.
it's terrible. So if somebody comes to your door, don't talk to them. If somebody calls you and said their Social Security's fraud department, hang up on them. And if you get a letter from Social Security saying that they're investigating fraud, then it's serious and you have to get the details.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Jim, before we get into the Q&A, I want to finish up with one point. You've been in and around the Social Security Administration since 1973. You've seen lots and lots and lots and lots and lots. There's kind of a two-part to this. I mean, where's the good news? And like, where is the good news? And like, if you were to look at this based on a level of concern for other times that you've been doing this work, I mean, what's the degree of severity? That's my two-part finish to this segment here.
It's hard to find good news now, other than there are probably more qualified representatives than there have ever been. And if you're going to find a representative, make sure that they belong to either NASCAR or NADER, and that they go to some continuing education classes. If they don't take any continuing education classes in Social Security, they're not keeping up to date on the most current trends in the law and how to represent their clients the best.
Yeah.
The bad news is we have a government that doesn't understand Social Security disability, doesn't care about Social Security disability, because those are people in need. And they don't mean anything to them. What I encourage everybody to do is go to the town hall meetings that their US senators and US representatives have and ask their positions on Social Security disability. Ask them what they're going to do to protect Medicaid and Social Security disability. And if you get double talk, push them to give a real answer and let them know how important it is. They have to respond. And if they know that people in their district are concerned about this, they're more likely to stand up for you than if you don't go there and tell them. Yeah. So if your voice is heard, you have a chance to get some concern in Washington.
Yeah. So there's about 9 million Social Security disability recipients. If you know of people that are that, or even a Social Security just retirement, I mean, there's still vulnerability there. Spread the word on what they can do to make a difference. So that's helpful. All right, so let's transition a bit. Nadine, do you just first of all have you advise what the protocol is for questions, and then Philip will move on to your questions.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be sending a link for those of you who would like to join us live via Zoom for the Q&A. And then make sure that when you join, you send in your question. You can either type it via chat in Zoom or in the comment section below the video. So, and I see a lot of engagement right now, a lot of questions in the comment section as well. So if you're not going to be able to join us via Zoom, we would also try to read and answer your questions as well.
All right, wonderful. So that means it is time for the Philip Price Show. Philip's got some questions from his group today. All right, let's have at it.
Okay. First question, which is better for the hearing, in person, video, or audio? And will the attorney or will my lawyer ask the questions?
Okay. First of all, if you do a video hearing, be careful what's in your background. I have a friend who had a video hearing and his client had some really disgusting posters in the background, and the judge was highly offended. So
Oh no.
have a clear background if you can. If you're comfortable with video, do video, but make sure you dress nicely for your video hearing. Don't be in a torn t-shirt or look sloppy. Remember, you're in court and you have to look presentable. I have a lot of clients that just aren't comfortable doing video and will do a telephone hearing instead. A lot of the judges like phone hearings better because they can do those from home. Some of the judges can do video hearings from home. Some have to go into the office for their video hearings. Right now, if you do a video or audio hearing, you're getting it 71 days faster than an in-person hearing. If the time frame is important to you, consider that when you're making your choice. As far as who questions you, that depends on the judge. There are some judges who swear you in, ask your name and your social security number and turn it over to your lawyer. There are other judges who will ask 20, 25 minutes of questions and then turn it over to your lawyer. So it just depends on the judge.
Good question.
Next one. I'm in the process of reviewing my Social Security file before meeting with the lawyer to represent for judicial hearing. What in your file did you feel was important to review beforehand?
Can I assume this person already has a representative?
I think so. Yes, they do.
Okay. When I review with my clients, I do it in 4 to 5 sessions of 10 to 15 minutes each. If I try to do an hour to an hour and a half in one session to cover everything, I'm not doing it that well by the end, and it's a lot for my clients to take in all at once. So I'll spend the first session talking about their past work. What did you do in the last 5 years of work? And in each job, what percentage of your day was standing, sitting, walking? What was the average weight you lifted? What was the heaviest weight you lifted? Did you have to write any reports in that job? Did you have to go to school to learn the job? And just go through all of the contingencies of that job. The second session, I talk about what they do during the day. What time do you wake up? What do you do when you wake up? What do you do in the morning? What do you do in the afternoon? What do you do in the evening? And get a good picture of their typical day. How often do you leave the house? I've won some cases by proving that my client can't leave the house. It's too difficult. If you can't leave the house, you can't work. The third session, I talk about the hearing. I always waive the judge's opening statement. The judge is supposed to read a statement saying, you filed your claim on this date, went to DDS, it was denied on this date, you appealed on this date, and the whole procedural history of why you're there. It's a total waste of time. I look at the judge's opening statement in advance. If it's accurate, I waive the reading of it and I tell my client what it's going to say and that I'm waiving the reading. The judges want the hearings to be over in 45 to 60 minutes. They have to spend 15 minutes reading that statement. It's a waste of time.
Yeah.
I then tell my clients about the judge questioning them, me questioning them, what the vocational witness's role will be, and go through that. My fourth session, by then I should have all my medical evidence. And I talk about what the evidence shows and what we're trying to prove. My fifth session is just to see if there's any questions they have before the hearing. And each of these sessions takes 10 to 15 minutes. It's the same as if I did the whole hearing review in one session, except my clients can handle it better in smaller bits, and I'm much sharper doing it in smaller sessions. But that's what you should cover.
Okay. That's extensive. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, this next one's a little lengthy, so bear with me on it. Okay. Ted says, I'm a PTSD, MDD combat veteran with over 20 years diagnosis for both conditions. I had to stop working years ago due to the symptoms, and although I'm not rated 100% disabled, I receive 80% with TDIU, total disability unemployable, indicating cognitive and memory decline. My claim is still being processed, but I've just been diagnosed with adult ADHD at age 53. That wasn't caught, although I've spent my entire adult life in therapy. I've started taking medication for ADHD. Should I add this diagnosis to my claim? Additionally, I have evaluations from the private doctors prior to my disability date stating I'm unemployable. But I couldn't retrieve the medical records outside of the VA hospital. Will these evaluations serve as sufficient evidence to help me in my case?
Okay, first of all, the doctor saying you're unemployable isn't good evidence. The doctor doesn't know your vocational background. If you have a 10th grade education and you've only worked in a factory, what may make you unemployable wouldn't necessarily make me unemployable. So the doctor isn't qualified to discuss the vocational factors. The doctor's qualified to discuss your physical and mental restrictions. How long can you concentrate? How many breaks a day would you need from work? What percentage of the day would you be off task? How many days a month would you miss from work if you were working full time? There's a lot of things. A diagnosis isn't a disability. This person has some severe diagnoses, but we don't know what restrictions the doctor has given. So that's what you need is the doctor's restrictions. Definitely add the ADHD, but again, is the medicine keeping it under control or is it still a severe impairment? As far as adding it, I had a client with severe autism, but this person was denied twice and we were going to the hearing. I included his broken left great toe, his torn meniscus, and his torn rotator cuff. Shouldn't have needed it, the autism was so severe, but I include every diagnosis.
Okay.
All right. This next one, Brian, you may want to take. It says, is there no way of not taking Medicare? My husband is on Medicare and I'm currently on marketplace insurance, which is considerably less than Medicare.
Right. Well, there's some things to consider if you do choose to opt out of Medicare. And when I say opt out of Medicare, Part A is free for most. So it's really Part B that's $185 a month. So if you opt out of that, and you have credible coverage, like let's say, for example, that's not the situation here, but let's say your spouse has insurance, then you can inform Social Security that you have credible coverage and there's no penalty. But if you don't have credible coverage and you opt out, if your situation changes or you should need it at some point in time in the future, you're going to be subject to a very steep penalty. So we're getting a lot of these questions lately, and I just encourage people. I understand it's a stinger, but I would look for other ways to save that money. A few thoughts are, like, they just changed the extra help threshold, which means that the state would pay for your Medicare Part B premium, so that it's really a non-issue from a cost perspective. So if you're individual and your check or your amount is $1,700 a month or less, this was a married couple, I think it might be $2,700, but I would definitely apply for extra help and see if you can get some relief there. The next possibility would be, depending on where you live, there may be a plan option that has a Part B buyback. It's not going to have as robust care, but by going into that Medicare Advantage plan, the Part B buyback would reduce or eliminate your Part B premium. So that's another way to do it. Third way to do it, find a way to make $185 a month so you can keep the best possible health care you can get access to.
All right, this goes back to Jim. This is the last one for today from the Facebook group. Anonymous member says, I apologize in advance for not knowing this, but does everyone need to go in front of the judge after approval?
After approval, you hopefully never have to go before a judge.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Hope that your benefits continue, but if they do a continuing disability review and they're trying to cut you off, then you go before a judge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good.
All right,
I pride myself on trying to win the cases without it needing to go to a judge.
Yeah. It saves you time and the client.
And reduces legal fees.
Yeah. All right, it is time for the Nadine Show public program.
Okay, so yeah, I posted the link in the comment section. So those who are interested in joining us live, please feel free to click on the link. But while we wait for that, first, just want to give a shout out to Jay Johnston. He said he finally got approved after 2.5 years. So congratulations,
Congratulations.
getting approved. Yeah, so first question from Joshua Harris. What would be the biggest change for a couple wherein one is on SSI and the other a working person and then they get married?
If you get married, the spousal income counts against the SSI, and you could lose your SSI. It depends what your total family income is, but basically, a rule of thumb is if the working spouse is earning over $2,000 a month, the SSI gets terminated.
Mm-hmm.
What I have recommended to some people is don't get married or have a religious or civil marriage that's not filed with the state. I've seen a lot of people go through a wedding ceremony that's not one that's an official wedding ceremony, but they can live as spouses, and in their hearts they're married, but the government doesn't consider them married.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe like go to Vegas or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. So
Or
if you're,
anybody can get ordained online and officiate a wedding.
yeah. So if you're getting married for money, you want to think twice about that situation, right? Okay. All right.
So,
I see there's a couple in queue here, Nadine. I'll let you manage the show as you see fit.
yeah, I see Vince and Brittany trying to join us live. But please, I would really appreciate if you could let us know what your question is beforehand so that we can filter it out and see if it's something that we can answer for you. So again, you can chat me via Zoom, or you can also send in your question in the comment section on YouTube. So while I wait for your questions, we have a question here from Dolly Parham. She said, how long does it take to get an answer on your claim if it's in the hands of an adjudicator?
Depends what state you're in. If you're in Ohio, you usually get a decision in 5 to 6 months. If you're in Texas, it's 18 to 20 months. And those are the two extremes.
Mhm.
So somewhere in between that.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Another question from Zippy. Since my SSDI approval 3 years ago, my award letter indicated that my CDR will be in 5 to 7 years. I'm now 60. What are the likelihood of CDR?
If you're 60 years old, the chances pre this administration, the chances would be not at all. With this new administration, I'm not taking bets on anything. You might get reviewed once more before you're 62.
Mhm.
That's why keep going to the doctors, keep your medical evidence going, just in case you get reviewed.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So anyway, we have Lisa here. I'm gonna bring her in first because she sent her question in the comment section. She said she is 62 years old, been an SSDI for 2 years in June, and due for CDR. So I think her question revolves around CDR. So I'm gonna let her in.
Okay.
Hi, Lisa.
Lisa, we see that you are here. Your microphone and your camera are off. We invite you to turn them on so we can meet you, speak with you, ideally help you. While we're doing that, Jim, I have a question for you.
Okay.
We're commonly contacted by individuals that have workers' compensation. And unless their workers' compensation award amount is amortized over their lifetime, it could reduce or eliminate their Social Security back benefits. For example, let's say they have a $30,000 work comp settlement, one-time amount. They apply for Social Security disability, and their Social Security disability back benefits are $32,000. There would only be a $2,000 difference. But there is a way that an individual can communicate, my understanding, with their work comp attorney to have that amortized over the lifetime. Could you explain that in a bit more detail?
Yes. The most you can receive between workers' comp and Social Security disability is 80% of your best year's earnings. So the first thing you should know is what is your best year, which usually wasn't the year you stopped working. If you're getting workers' comp, it's usually 2/3 of what you were making. So let's say that you were making $50,000 a year. The most you can receive between workers' comp and Social Security is $40,000 a year.
Okay.
If your workers' comp is paying you $33,000 a year, the most you can get from Social Security is $7,000 a year. But if you then settle the case, let's say you settle it for $30,000 in the example you gave. If it's just a lump sum settlement of $30,000, it's considered as if you got all that money that year. If the settlement agreement says this settlement is prorated over a life expectancy of 120 months, they then reduce that to 30,000 divided by 120, and your amount comes to less than $1,000 a year.
Yeah.
And there's no offset to your Social Security at all. The settlement agreement has to say it's amortized over your life expectancy of however many months. The government always publishes daily what the life expectancy is of someone born the year you were born.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as it's in that agreement, a sentence in that agreement saying so, then Social Security won't consider you getting all that money at once, even though you did.
Okay, that's beautiful. Now, if the award, the $30,000 has been issued and there is no indication or language in there amortizing it, can one go back and have it rewritten? Or does that, you have to go back to court? It's complicated. What's going on there?
Not once it's settled and you've gotten your money.
Okay.
Then it's too late to change it.
All
But
right.
I've seen cases where the settlement is for over $100,000
Mhm.
and amortized over, say, a 10-year life expectancy. That comes to $1,000 a year or $1,000 a month or less, and it takes almost nothing away from Social Security.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I've seen people, a TSA worker on workers' comp, maybe getting $90,000 a year on workers' comp, but they were making $140,000 a year. So they're entitled to their whole Social Security. The problem sometimes is the person at Social Security calculating benefits doesn't realize that they have to look at their total income. And they still try to reduce it or cut it out because of the amount of workers' comp without realizing they're entitled to all of it.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure you know your best year's earnings and you bring it to Social Security if they're trying to cut you to less than 80%.
Mm-hmm. Good points. Good.
The other thing that's important is Social Security's cost of living increases don't count in that 80%.
Good to know. Good to know. Good. Nadine, I'll just give a shout out, see if I can help you out. There's several people that are would like to join, but unless you can communicate to us what your question is,
Yeah.
right, it's like the barrier to entry. So you can do that two ways. You can reply when you're in the Zoom room via chat to Nadine, or you can type it in the YouTube chat
Comments.
so that we know like what your topic is and you're not asking us about like dog treatment questions or something like that. Right. So like Lisa with the CDR, that was fine, but it looks like there was a glitch for Lisa to get in the room. Okay.
Yeah, so while we wait for them to send in their question, we have a question here from Jennifer. She said, if I get divorced after 10 years and I am on disability on my own already, but I'm under 62, will my benefits get adjusted based on his earnings? I've read that I have to wait until retirement age. If so, why? Also, does alimony affect disability benefits? Thank you.
Alimony does not affect disability benefits. You have to wait until your spouse reaches retirement age. If your spouse is much older than you, you get that benefit sooner. The thing is, you don't get the same amount as your spouse. You get a half to 2/3 of your spouse. So sometimes your disability is still higher than you would get getting the spousal benefits, but you can ask Social Security to check and see which benefit would be higher.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Now, he also have a question here from Michael. He said, does the bill that passed stop the taxation of Social Security payment?
It hasn't passed yet. The president said that he's going to stop taxing Social Security. Social Security is only taxed if your income, if you're on retirement, or your spouse's income, if you're married and getting disability, is over $35,000 a year. If it is, then there's a tax on your Social Security income. The president said he's going to stop the tax on that. That has not passed yet. It wasn't in the House budget bill that passed. It's in one of the Senate bills, not the other one. It's the same as there's a proposal that there be no tax on overtime. If they take away the tax on overtime, you can have somebody like Jeff Bezos, who makes $5 billion a year, say he works 80 hours a week. And so 40 hours a week is overtime, and he should only pay taxes on half his income. And say half his income is overtime, and he shouldn't pay taxes on it. It will be ripe for lots of abuses if they take away the tax on overtime. The tax on Social Security, we'll see how, if they pass it. If they're trying to curb the national debt, they're not going to put that in, because that doesn't affect the people who really need the money.
Okay. We have another question here from, yeah, it's an anonymous name. I just had a CDR completed and approved. How long till I probably get a new one? I have medical improvement, not expected status.
Interesting.
It depends how old you are. If you're in your 40s, you can expect one in 3 years. If you're in your 50s, you can expect it in 5 years.
Okay. Okay, so another question here from VG Warren. How often do people get approved after the hearing after being denied at the original and reconsideration?
That again depends on your judge. Back 10 years ago, 70% of the people wanted hearings. Now it's about 50%. But again, there's one judge who pays 6%. There's another judge who pays 70%. The assistant chief hearing judge once said to me, what would you think if we made a rule that every judge had to pay 50% of the cases? And I said, that would be great for the people who had good representatives, because they would win 70%, and the people who weren't represented or had bad representatives would win 20%. So I said, you'd still have a very unfair system. They never put that in place. The judges union would never stand for a quota that you had to pay a certain percentage of the cases.
Okay. All right. So I think Vincent and Vince, these are the same people. Vincent sent in a question in our comment section. He said he's 62. He's asking if he can file retirement benefits while waiting for SSDI. So I'm gonna let him in the Zoom.
Good question.
Vince doesn't have his camera on.
Nope. We're waiting for his audio.
Yeah.
He might have Elon Musk Starlink. It's kind of slow. Poor guy. Yeah. All right, Vince, I see that your audio is connected. Your camera is not. Can you hear us? How about we move on to a question until he gets his technology sorted out?
Or we can let another person. Oh, he just left. Damaris, he has a question. He was trying to join, and I see his question in comment section now. But anyway, yeah, we have a question here from Jay Vaughn. He said he is 31 with severe back pain and severe depression. What are my chances of getting approved for SSDI? So,
Well, that's a good one. So he's joining the room, coming into the tank.
no, no, this one is a question from the comment.
Okay, Jim,
Okay.
I'll let you take a swing at that one.
Okay. That again depends on the restrictions. You have exertional and non-exertional restrictions. What limitations is your physician giving? Does the physician say you can lift 20 pounds? If you have a 20-pound restriction, your back isn't going to get you disability by itself. If you have a 5-pound lifting restriction, you're partway home. You should be all the way there, except on these times you're not. We add the non-exertional restrictions. So how much will you be off task? Meaning, because of your pain, your depression, your anxiety, how much of the workday would you not be able to focus on your work? If it's more than 10%, that has a lot to do with getting you disability. How much of your day would you be unable to concentrate? How many days a month would you miss from work because of your physical and mental conditions? If you would miss 1 day a month, every month from work, most vocational experts would say you're unemployable, because that would mean you'd have 12 sick days a year, and most employers wouldn't stand for that. So it's a matter of what restrictions are the doctors treating your physical and mental conditions giving you. If the restrictions are severe enough, you have a good chance of getting disability.
Good explanation, Jim.
All right. So I think we already have Vincent here in
Hello,
Zoom.
can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have double Vincent.
Oh, thank you. I'll be brief. Thanks for your patience.
Sure.
My question was, as was laid out by the host, I will be 62 in about a month, and I have an attorney now that I engaged because I'm in appeal and reconsideration for about 45 days now since I was denied on the first try. I'm thinking of applying for retirement. I'm kind of hesitant because everything's still up in the air with the attorney and getting that sort of settled out and what the reconsideration outcome will be. I mean, I assume it's going to look bad if I file for retirement benefits while waiting for an outcome on the reconsideration. Even though I'm frustrated by the long time frame, et cetera, but thank you for any advice you can provide.
I'm going to defer to Attorney Brown on this one, Vincent.
The only
Thank you.
one who won't be happy, if you file for early retirement is your attorney, because that means he'll get a smaller fee. But I tell my clients, you need the money, get the early retirement. And when you get disability, they pay the difference between early retirement and the disability benefits. You need the money, you should get it now. And it doesn't affect your application for disability to say I got early retirement. If anybody asked you why, you'd say because I needed the money.
Yeah.
I had no income coming in. That's legitimate.
Thank you. I thought so. I hope my attorney would agree, but I haven't I haven't spoken to them in a few weeks, the council. So I mean, do I even tell them? Well, if I'm applying, we'll let them, can I keep that to myself, or they're going to find out? They're probably going to find out with the records, I assume.
You should apply, and if they ask you, tell them you applied for early retirement, but just apply for it.
Okay. Thank you very much for the advice. Appreciate
Sure
it.
thing. Good luck.
Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. Take care.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us. Are we still able to take in more questions?
Jim, you have a few more minutes? Another,
Sure.
yeah? Okay.
Okay.
Why don't we
So-
go for another 9 minutes?
Yeah. So we have a question here. 9 months ago, I received a disability update form. I've heard nothing back. Is this normal?
Ooh.
Was this from Social Security? I assume it was a Social Security disability update. And yes, they send those out. And if you don't hear anything back, they're continuing your disability.
Okay. All right. Another question here from Jake. This is my second time applying. I'm waiting for a hearing. What should I expect during my hearing?
Well, I think,
Okay. If you're represented, you should talk to your representative about that. If you're not represented, you should get a representative. The
Okay.
layperson doesn't know how to cross-examine the vocational witness. The vocational witness may come up with some jobs you can do that are absurd. I had one about 6 months ago where the vocational witness said my client could be a toy stuffer, meaning putting the filling into stuffed animals. And when I said, when did you last see this job? He said, I last saw that job about 6 months ago. And I asked where, and he said, Southeastern Ohio. He couldn't remember the name of the company. I Googled toy stuffing jobs in Ohio and found the last one left Ohio for China 9 years prior. One of the things I always do when I have a telephone or video hearing is have 2 computers open on my desk. So when I get jobs that seem absurd, I Google them on my second computer. So I was cross-examining this person about that and locked him into being sure he saw this job, and then started questioning him about when did the toy stuffing jobs leave for China. And the judge finally agreed that none of his answers were credible. The average layperson wouldn't know how to question a vocational witness. The answer about some jobs would pass because they wouldn't know how to get them not to be legitimate, and they would lose their case. So I strongly recommend being represented by somebody who does a lot of Social Security.
mhm. Mhm.
I hope it's okay to take one more question here from Damaris Rodriguez. He said, "Hi, I've been paying an overpayment of 75,000. I've been fighting to let the this is not my oh, he's here. Can we let him in?"
Sure.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, so his question is about overpayment, and he wants to know if he could get back the money that he paid for from the supposed overpayment.
All right. Damaris, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. My question is, I've been paying an overpayment for a long time. They keep saying I owe $75,000, which is ridiculous. I even got Schumer involved. He did his investigation with Hillary Clinton, and they say, "Are they nuts? You know, where do you know this from?" And they left me alone like for maybe half a year. And then they stopped my check twice, saying that no, you owe us this much. So I started paying just to get my money. I have a lot of illnesses, and I told them, okay, and I live with that. But like maybe 3, 4 years ago, 2 years ago, they said, okay, you don't have to pay us any. Wait a minute. I said, hold on. Where's the money that I paid you now? I want it back. I think it was unfair. Somebody made a mistake because someone said at the Social Security office, you might owe us something, but not all of this money. And it's wrong. You should get whatever it's going to. Like they say, you have to wait until the computer realizes they made a mistake. I was like, excuse you? Who feeds the computer? A human. So no, I want my money back. What should I do?
Why did they say you were overpaid?
They claimed that when I was working part-time, a hospital for special surgery here in New York, that I did all of that money. I was like, no way. There's no way. And like I said, I had Schumer involved and Hillary Clinton, and they send their people to check. They say, you don't owe this, Damaris. You don't owe this at all. So I don't understand. It doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. And a lot of people, where I opened up my case on 125th Street here in New York City, were arrested. Like a whole bunch of them, because they were doing illegal. They never let us know what it was. But how do I don't know that these people went into my stuff and were part of that, and now I'm paying for the consequence.
What you need to do first is go into the Social Security office and ask them to give you the entire file pertaining to your overpayment.
Okay.
Ask to see everything they have that shows you were overpaid, what was paid back to them, why they say you were overpaid, what records they have, and then go through it to see where their mistakes are. Did you appeal your overpayment?
Yes, many times.
Okay, is there an appeal pending now, or did they turn you down every time?
They turn me down all the time. But like I told you on years ago, I said, okay, so how much I've paid you guys back? I keep checking, and they're like, well, we're not charging you right now anymore. It has stopped for a while. So
Do you
I don't
have
know.
receipts for everything you paid?
Of course, like it goes, what they used to do was take it from my check directly. So if I get 1,000, they'll just send me 900.
Okay, you need to go get the whole file and look at it, and it may show you where their mistakes are when you get to look at it.
Okay.
But without seeing all of their records, it's hard to know what they did, why they did it, or where their mistakes are.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Thank you. I need it.
Thank you, Damaris.
Thank you so much,
Thank-
Brian.
Yes. All right. Oh, that's unfortunate. All right. In respect of time, we're going to wrap up. Nadine, you have a couple things to share with the audience before we finish up here?
Yep. So I am going to send in the link for Ask Benny. So, if you have questions that you need instant answers, you can definitely try Benny. He doesn't rest. You can ask him anytime.
Yes. I'll just chime in on that. What we've done here at the Disability Digest is our effort to combat the deficiency in service at Social Security. And for 16 months, we have been building a AI bot, which means they take all of the information that has been created from our presentations and our videos and all the questions that you folks ask, and we put it into this AI. If you've been to our last prior events about AI, you get a feel for how it works. So you can ask such questions like, do I qualify? How much can I make? Housing options, treatment options. There's over 200 questions, commonly asked questions that are in there. So this is Benny, what he looks like. So Thank you, Nadine. We'll put this link in there that you can go in and just type your question down in the box and you're good to go.
Yep.
All right, Nadine, what's next? Anything?
Yeah, we're all good with the questions.
Okay, great. So that's one way in which we can help you. The best way that we can help you here at the Disability Digest, you're welcome to listen to all the videos and the lives that we've done, is if you join us as a member, and this is a Disability Digest website. Nadine will put the link, it looks like you maybe already have, in the chat. And the reason why this is the best way is your profile, when you complete it, helps us understand where you're at. Maybe some of the challenges that you're having, like you're out of work, you've applied and denied, like your geographical area, so that we can take the resources that we have and tailor them to what your needs are. An example for the approval process, we have a comprehensive disability approval course that's been put together with industry experts, one of which is attorney James Mitchell Brown, that is with us here today. And this has step-by-step courses on like how to file your initial application. Once that's done, you're in a different segment, like what to do while you're waiting. If you get denied, how to file your appeal. And ideally, hopefully, we want to get everybody to step 5, which is approved. So there's no charge for your membership. The course that I just showed you about getting approved, there's no charge for that. We have a similar course that I mentioned during the program about how to survive your continuing disability review. So that's how the digest works. Is you join as a member, you get access to courses. And again, there's no charge. We're supported by ads and sponsors and services here to make the whole thing work for you. So 822 people on YouTube out there. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Jim, great information. I don't know if there's anywhere else we could go and get this information, which makes it extra special. So I thank you for your contribution to helping our members.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, yes. Philip, as always, appreciate your participation. Shout out to you and your group. Nadine, thank you for doing a thumbs up, double thumbs up job for hosting today. So we will be back next week. Hopefully we'll have Jim back again. There's some other topics I'd like to have him air out for us. So we hope to have you back. All right.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, make it a great day. Stay tuned. Wish you well.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.